With that down and out of the way, let's move on to our fourth and final main topic today. And our fourth and final main topic today gets submitted to us by Jaxon P, who writes, I'm a massive fan of the recent Planet of the Apes movies, and I just read a pretty disturbing story that the new film under Disney isn't going to continue on from the story in War for the Planet of the Apes, and instead will reboot the franchise. What the hell? Why throw away all that hard work and goodwill the last three movies have built up? What could they possibly be thinking? All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yes, right now, there is a story going around. You guys have probably seen it on some of the sites that you guys read, that the next Planet of the Apes movie that Disney is looking at doing will not be a continuation of the ones that we've had up until now, but rather be another new reboot. That's what they're talking about. Now, it should be pointed out that while there are a bunch of websites reporting this, and some reputable websites, remember what I always tell you guys. Where are they getting that from? Look to the source. And all these sites that are reporting about this all get their source. They're all getting this information from the same one website. It's a website I've never heard of. That doesn't mean it's not excellent. I'm just saying, nobody's heard of every website. This is one I've not personally heard of. It's called Discussing Film. And that, which is not one of the big trades, so it doesn't mean it's not true at all. I'm just saying, keep in mind that this information is not coming from the studio. It's not coming from Variety. It's not coming from Deadline. It's not coming from the Hollywood Reporter. It's coming from a site that I personally, again, doesn't mean it's not a fantastic site. I'm just saying I've not heard of it, called Discussing Film. So that's where they're all getting this information from. So let's take it with a grain of salt for now. All right. If we're going to assume for a moment, and granted, we're just assuming for the moment, that this is true, that Disney is going to be doing this as a reboot, I don't mind the idea. I'll be honest with you. I don't mind the idea. Listen, to me, War for the Planet of the Apes brought that story to a conclusion, because that story, you might as well have called it the Caesar trilogy. The centerpiece of all three of those films was beautifully and gloriously Caesar. Now, if you've seen the film, you know how that film ends. That story's done. So, and by the way, can I just point something out here? Look at this image. Can I just mention that while I enjoyed War for the Planet of the Apes, that it was one of the most bold-faced, lying, deceptive marketing campaigns I've seen for a movie in decades. Like, this scene here, this never happens in the movie. This scene never happens in the movie. All the trailers and everything were like, here it is, everybody, the big battle between the humans and the apes. And that is not a part of this movie. It's never happens in the movie. They put out all sorts of images like this, like the army of mankind and the army of the apes, and they're coming to face off. We're going to get this big glorious battle we've been waiting 7 years to see. Never happens. It is such a lying, deceptive marketing campaign. It drove me nuts, which unfortunately irritated me to probably like the movie a little bit less than I would have, because it's actually quite a solid movie. It's a really good movie, but it is what it is. Anyway, understanding that they really did bring Caesar's story to a conclusion, and that story is done, and really he was the centerpiece of this entire story. He was the heartbeat of this movie franchise. He was the crown jewel of the franchise. Everything emotionally and narratively was built around this character. Now that character's gone, I gotta say, the idea of rebooting this franchise now, maybe even in a different era, and just saying it's a reboot, it's not connected, whatever, I don't necessarily think it's all that bad of an idea. Those three films were glorious. They were built around Caesar. It's done. Now there's still stuff to do here with the mythology. Let's move on to something else, and maybe they can do some more glorious stuff. So I don't know if this information is completely correct, Rob, but I'll tell you, if it is correct, I actually don't think it's that bad of an idea. Anyway, how do you see this?
Well, look, I grew up with, well, I don't know if you grew up, but I grew up with the Planet of the Apes, the 5 original movies. I think the original Planet of the Apes is one of the finest science fiction films ever made. I have great affection for Beneath the Planet of the Apes and the other three movies. While they're the law of diminishing returns applies to them, I still enjoy them as a franchise. Not so big on Tim Burton's remake, but I loved the Caesar trilogy. I thought it even fits in with the original 5 films. You could say that there's a loose continuity there, but I really loved what they did with this Planet of the Apes trilogy. I think it was an astonishing feat of what CG and motion capture can represent. The fact that there was real emotion and pathos in these movies, but it's almost like I just don't know, where do you go with this franchise now that humanity has been essentially vanquished? And one of the things that's a staple of the Planet of the Apes movies has always been the push-pull. Obviously, it was mankind that was really front and center of the original trilogy. And in this case, they sort of flipped the script and they made Caesar the main character. But what do you do now? Show the development of ape civilizations? So you're just going to have apes and they're not going to relate to humans? I mean, you'd need a really spectacular idea to convince me that they could launch either another franchise or do another reboot with where it was left. I guess they would have to do a reboot, but then where do you go? Do you retell the story yet again? I mean, I don't know. Look, I'm always of the opinion that it seems a little dubious to me, but with a great script and a great creative direction and a kick-ass creative team, anything's possible. But I wondered, I'd rather see somebody take a crack at the Predator and Alien franchise and bring those back before this one comes back.
I see. I look at it, Rob, as a situation that one of the things Planet of the Apes, with the mythology of it that we have always looked forward to seeing, was the pivotal epic battle that took place between the apes and humans that ended up with the apes ruling the planet. And as much as I love those 3 films that we just got, it never gave us that. It never did give us that. It gave us a disease that made humans stupid. Okay.
Yep.
And actually, narratively, that was kind of clever. I thought that was kind of clever. But now you have a chance, you have an opportunity, if you're Disney, to actually do that movie, to actually give us a new series of movies that actually focus on the war between humanity and apes, and we know where it goes, but finally get that opportunity. So for that reason, Rob, I'm actually feeling kind of optimistic. If they do this, I like it. All right, guys, question here is, what do you think about this? You hear that Disney, now again, we don't know that this is actually true, but if it is true, take that with a giant asterisk. If it is true, how do you feel about it? Are you really disappointed? Did you want to see a 4th installment of that franchise that we had? Are you happy about it? Do you think it's time for a fresh start with it? How do you feel about it? Jump on down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys.